Hello everyone. I would say this is probably going to be a little bit more chill video, but honestly there's no predicting my energy levels. So, could be a little more chill because I'm feeling a little chill, but then I'll probably get really excited and shit'll go crazy. Not really crazy. Anyway, here's my number one favorite series, description/review, Court of Thorns and Roses. So in the first book, we meet Feyre. She is great. Love her. And she hunts for her family, takes care of them. She is actually out hunting when we meet her for the first time. And she kills a deer and she kills a wolf. Little does she know, this wolf is actually a fae. I was gonna say dressed up. It's not dressed up, it's transformed into a wolf. And so she takes the wolf pelt and the deer carcass and takes them both home. She's gonna sell both of the pelts and make the meat into some soup, some jerky, and she's gonna feed her family with it. Anyway, so we then meet her sisters, who Elaine's just kind of ditzy, is how I would describe it a little bit. No. Ditzy I take to mean, like, happy. Happy and stupid. She's just kind of dumb. Doesn't really understand what's going on. 100%. Or at least that's what it seems like. And then Nesta's just kind of a bitch. And that's where we are with those two. The dad's kind of useless. He just kind of sits by the fire with his leg, unwilling to do anything to help them because he's too proud. Anyway, he's too proud. Feyre gets taken away by Tamlin. He comes in as a big beast and is like, "You killed the wolf. Who killed the wolf in the woods?" And she's like, "I did." And he's like, "Alright, well, I'm either gonna kill you now, or you can come back with me to Prithian and live there forever." And she's like, "Alright. Kill me outside, please." And he's like, "You sure that's what you want?" And she's like, "Fine, whatever, just take me to Prithian. Okay, let's just get it over with." So they go, she's miserable, just spends a while trying to get back to her family, and then when she gives up on that because she realizes they're better off without her and they probably don't miss her because they were all assholes to her, she starts to look around, get to make herself at home, get to know Tamlin a little better, get to know Lucien a little better, and tries to figure out some answers. She meets the Suriel, who tells her to stay close to Tamlin because he'll protect her and everything. And then there's Calanmai, which is just a big orgy, basically, that releases magic into the world. And, Tamlin gets a little territorial over Feyre. Feyre starts painting again on actual canvases and stuff just all around the house. We meet Rysand. He saves Feyre from getting sexually assaulted. And then she kind of runs away with him because she's like, he is the most attractive male I have ever seen in my life. She's also like, I don't know you, so I don't trust you. So she runs away, and then Rysand comes for another visit later and finds her and is like, "What's your name?" And she gives a name from her village, which I would have just made one up. Why would you give an actual name? Like, Tamlin and Lucien are obviously afraid of him and whoever he works for. Why would you give a real name? Anyway, she gives Claire Better's name, and poor little Claire and Claire's family gets slaughtered, their house gets burned down, and Claire gets abducted to Prithian, where she's tortured for a really long time. Luckily, Rye's mercy kills her, though, because he was only trying to save Feyre by by not turning her in. But he thought that she would just give a fake name, not the name of somebody who actually existed. Anyway, so Feyre and Tamlin get closer, they fall in love, Rise comes back again and threatens Feyre, which scares Tamlin, and so Tamlin and Feyre sleep together, and then he sends her back to the human world to protect her. Again, Rise is only threatening her. Sorry, it's Rhys, but I call him Rise and Rysand. Rhysand. And Rhys, he's not a peanut butter cup. So that's why I call him Rise and Rysand. He's not a peanut butter cup, so I avoid calling him Rhys and Rhysand. Anywho, so, he was just trying to protect her by threatening her, get Tamlin to send her away so that she wasn't around when Amenthara came to take everyone from the Spring Court under the mountain. Feyre goes back to the human world, sees her family, spends a little bit of time with them, but realizes she's in love with Tamlin and has to go back. So, she goes back, she talks to Alice, Alice gives her all the exposition, everything she needs to know about what's been happening, and why they weren't able to tell her before, and then, Feyre goes under the mountain to save Tamlin and everyone else. She gets caught almost immediately by the Auteur, the big dick bag. They drag her into the throne, he drags her into, is it a he? Whatever. It drags her into the throne room, and before Amenthara, and Amenthara's kind of pissed. Amarantha. She's kind of pissed because she thought she had taken care of the little human problem. But turns out she didn't. So she doesn't just want to outright kill Feyre because, I mean, torturing Claire was, like, fun, but it could have been more fun. So she gives Feyre 2 chances to save everyone. The first is complete a series of trials. If she succeeds and wins, I don't know, she gets Tamlin, and her and Tamlin get to leave. Her and everyone get to leave? I don't know. I don't remember. I think might just be her and Tamlin that get to leave, though. Or she solves the riddle. I mean, I was really proud of myself until I watched some other people's reviews on this book, and then they talked about the riddle in the book, and they were like, yeah, I got it immediately. I was like, oh, I'm good at riddles, I didn't know that. Turns out it was just a super easy riddle, apparently. Because everyone was like, she could have made the riddle a little bit harder, a little bit more difficult to figure out, and I was just like, oh, I can't believe I got it immediately, like, I feel so great, I'm so smart. Oh. Anyway, so she gives her a riddle, the answer to the riddle is love, and Feyre completes all the trials successfully, but... Oh wait, no, the deal was everyone would get to go free. She never said anything, I don't think she said anything about Feyre being able to go free, but she said everyone could go free. But she never specified when everyone could go free. Which is something Feyre should have thought of. I mean, Fae are very specific with their wordings. Like, especially an evil bitch like Amarantha, like... You didn't think she was gonna try and play you? Anyway, Amarantha's like, yeah, they can all go free someday. I never specified when I would free them. So she's like, but you can't go free and I'm gonna kill you. So she tortures Feyre, like, makes her blood boil in her body and, like, breaks all of the bones in her body and, like, rips all of her muscles apart in her body. Like, it's just a whole lot of brutal torture. It's really not fun. Rise is trying to save her, and Tamlin's just kind of sitting there like a dumbass, like the stupid bitch that he is, just watching her die. Like, I get that he was just stabbed in the heart, but at the same time, like, not only are you high fae, like, your heart's made of stone. Like, get your dramatic ass off the floor and save the woman you're in love with. Anyway, so, Feyre dies, and Rysand is devastated. And so he breaks through the mental barriers of all the High Lords and convinces them, either convinces or forces them to give a little bit of their power to Feyre in order to bring her back. It'll bring her back as High Fae, but he's like, it's better than nothing. So they do that, they bring her back. Oh! While she's being tortured, she figures out the answer to the riddle, and she's like, the answer to your riddle is love! And then Amarantha snaps her neck. Rise has her changed into a High Fae by all the High Lords, and she comes back to life, and everything's all good. They have a last little moment together, her and Rise, where, they have a chat on the balcony. Oh yeah, she had made a deal with him to give 1 week a month to him. 1 week a month she's gotta go live in the Night Court with him. And she goes and has a last little talk with him, and I don't really remember what it's about, but they, like, have a sweet conversation, like, about how he's not, like, what she thought he was. He thought he was, like, this really bad guy and all this stuff, and, based on everything Tamlin told her, although Tamlin only told her half the story, and it was the half that made him look like, oh, poor me, when in reality, the whole oh, poor me shit that happened to Tamlin only happened because of what Tamlin did to Rysand. So, just saying, Tamlin got what he deserved. Back then, anyway. Anyway, so they have this last little conversation, and as Rise is leaving, he, like, opens up his little window portal, and he's about to step into it, and he turns around to tell her something, and he's just, like someone just smacked him across the face. He's just dumbfounded and falls back into the portal with a look of complete shock on his face, and Feyre's like, okay, that was weird. Later we find out it's because the mating bond had just snapped into place. I mean, she was so, like, depressed and blinded by her feelings for Tamlin that she didn't even realize that it happened. But it did. And Rise felt it, and it just totally shocked him, and he fell back into his little portal. A Court of Mist and Fury is the best one. Well, A Court of Silver Flames is really good too, but this one's my favorite because I love reading about Rise and Feyre, like, becoming friends, and then falling in love with each other, and then, like, she finds out that they're mates, and then they just be super cute. I hate the ending. It's, like, the same as the ending of the first book. Poor Rise. Watch her go away with Tamlin again. Anyway, so this book starts off, Feyre is planning her wedding to Tamlin. And she's really depressed. Like, her and Tamlin are still boning, but she's getting up in the middle of the night every night throwing up, like, crying, just distraught. You fucking know with Tamlin's super hearing, because he's Fae, he can hear her throwing up, but he just pretends to sleep through it, because he doesn't want to talk to her about the issues. He's like, you know what, she'll be fine. She'll be fine. She'll be fine. But it's happening for months. She's losing weight, and he's not noticing, like, she's like, and her magic is, like, eating her up. I'm pretty sure at some point in this book, Rycian tells her that, like, if you've got really powerful magic and you don't ever use it, and you don't learn how to use it, it'll eventually drive you insane, and Tamlin just refuses to let her use her magic, or train her magic or anything, and the whole thing's just really bad. But she's still in love with him, and he's still in love with her, so they're gonna get married. Only the day of their wedding, she's walking down the aisle and realizes, I can't do this. There's something wrong. And she's screaming out in her head, help me, save me, stop me. Like, I can't do this. I cannot do this. And she's, like, near the end of the aisle, and Tamlin's holding out his hand, like, come to me. And she's just, like, frozen, and she's like, I can't do this. I can't marry him. I can't marry him. Someone help. And Rice hears her and comes busting into the wedding. All thunderclaps and, like, darkness. And is like, hey there, girl. And he whisks her away to the night court. She's super pissed because she's like, how dare you, that was my wedding. But then he's like, really, we've got a mental bond. I could hear you. All I could hear was you screaming for help. And I come and help you and you're like, how could you? But, like, I was about to get married, like, no you weren't. You had already decided you weren't. Anyway, so, she throws her shoes at him, and, it's really funny. What's that poem? I don't remember, there's a funny little, like, poem that the fandom made about, Rysand getting hit with a shoe. Oh, roses are red, violets are blue, the most powerful High Lord got hit by a shoe. Anyway, so, he kind of leaves her alone for a while, just kind of lets her get used to the night court, because she thinks it's, like, this really horrible, dark, dungeony, torture-y kind of place. So he leaves her alone, lets her get used to it, lets her see that it's not like that. There's a really beautiful city right outside. There's, like, this beautiful castle that she's in on the top of the mountain is, like, all open and airy with, like, warm, like, decor and, like, a bunch of pretty rugs and, like, it's just really, like, cozy place. And then he starts spending more time with her, and he tries to convince Tamlin to join, like, with the Night Court and everyone else, because he thinks a war is coming. She talks to Tamlin about it, and Tamlin's like, you know what, I'll look into it, you don't worry your pretty little female head about it, I'll do everything, you just sit there and look pretty, because that's all you're good for. So when she goes back with Rysand, oh no, I don't think she gets the chance to tell him that, because oh wait, no, she might tell him that, because at one point, Rys, like, winnows straight into their house, into Tamlin's mansion, and, starts, like, talking to Feyre and notices that she's lost even more weight, and he, like, goes off on Tamlin and, like, shoves him against the wall, and he's like, she is, like, do you not have food in the spring court? Like, look at her, she looks like she's starving to death. And he's like, no, we have food. I don't pay attention to what she eats or how much she eats or whatever. And Rise is pissed and he takes her away again. Uh, the next time Tamlin, she comes back and Tamlin's like, there's this disturbance of the border. And she's like, well, you know, I can handle myself. And it would be a great chance to see if, like, I've got any magic. Let me go with you. And he's like, no, I'm not letting you out of the house. And she's like, excuse me? And he's like, I'm not letting you out of the house. She's like, if you leave me here, I'll just follow you. She's like, I need to get out of the house. And he's like, no, you're not going to follow me. And he literally locks her in the house with magic. Like, there's nothing she can do. So she starts to feel trapped, like she's in the cell again, back with Amarantha, and she loses her shit, and she becomes the... What is it from Fantastic Four? The Human Torch? She kind of becomes the Human Torch. She, like, melts her engagement ring, it's, like, melted into the ground, and she's, like, screaming on the ground, engulfed in flames, like she's lost in the darkness of her mind, and just, like, trapped. Moore breaks into the house, and, well, Rise breaks the wards on the house. Moore breaks into the house, takes out the guards, and scoops Feyre up and gets her out. They go back to the night court, and Feyre wakes up there, and she's like, what happened? And he's like, well, you kind of lost it after Tamlin locked you in the house. And he's like, it would kind of create an international incident if I was the one who grabbed you out, but I didn't, it was Moore. And she was like, well, thank you. And she's like, I'm not going back. And he's like, all right. Or she's like, I don't know if I'm going to go back. And he's like, all right, just take your time, think about it, decide what you want to do. And she takes her time, she thinks about it, she writes Tamlin a letter saying, you fucked up, fam, I'm not going back. Tamlin doesn't believe her and believes that she's been kidnapped and that Rise wrote that letter and everything, so, like, he's sending people out to look for her. Her and Rise get to know each other a little bit more, she gets inducted into the inner circle and becomes one of the family. And then, Rysand starts training her in her magic. At one point, during the training, they run into Lucian and some Spring Court guards who have been looking for her in the forests of Illyria. And Lucian starts talking to her like she's a scared, timid animal that's been backed into a corner, and like she might spook at any second and turn and run off like a rabbit. And he's like not treating her like a person who has thoughts and feelings and desires and might not want to go back. And then when she expresses that she doesn't want to go back, Lucian's like, well, I know you don't want to be there, but you should be there and pretend to still be in love with Tamlin because he can't handle it if you actually loved him. And she's like, that's not my problem. That's Tamlin's problem. And so, she ends up growing herself a pair of wings that look just like Rysand's, and she, like, lights herself on fire again and starts stalking toward, because before she was kind of scared and timid, she knew that as soon as Lucian touched her, he would winnow them away somewhere else, where Rise might not be able to find them, and then she would, like, keep getting winnowed closer and closer to the Spring Court, and then once they crossed into the Spring Court, like, she'd basically be trapped there again, because I'm pretty sure Tamlin would be at the border waiting to intercept them and grab her, thinking that he's rescuing her. Anyway, so she starts just getting really pissed, because she's like, you know what, I'm not gonna keep backing away from you. She grows the wings, she's like standing up taller now. She like lights herself on fire, starts stalking toward Lucian, who's now the one shrinking back and like, what the fuck? Especially about the wings. And she's just like, do not you are not taking me back. I am never going back. I do not want to be with Tamlin. Like, y'all can go fuck yourselves. So Lucian's like, I don't know if he says, like, you're gonna regret this, or, like, this was, like, you're making a mistake, or something like that. But then Rise walks up behind her, and he's like, hey, girl, like, got everything handled? She's like, yeah. And so Lucian ends up leaving because he knows he can't take on both of them. Lucian and the Spring Court soldiers leave. Rise had used magic, though, and his magic is being tracked by Hybern. So, and he had used magic to get rid of his wings, because he can, like, get rid of them and make them appear and stuff like that. So he had used magic to get rid of his wings and change his clothes, because he had been in the Illyrian fighting leathers with his wings out and everything. But, like, he needed to present this, like, together, like, facade that, I don't give a fuck, like, thing that he does, and, that everyone else sees. And so he changed back into, like, his suit and put his wings away, but that was enough magic, even though it was only a little bit of magic, that was enough magic for them to be tracked, so, or maybe be tracked, they don't know yet. So they go and they get an inn, and they fool around a little bit. Rysand's a little sad because he, like, wants to be with his mate like that, but she's like, I just want fun right now. And he's just like, but he obliges, and then he rubs her back until she falls asleep, which is super sweet. Anyway, so then they leave the next morning, and they're flying, back to Illyria, and Rise gets shot with some ash arrows. A whole bunch of them hit his wings, and he throws Feyre as far as he can to get her away from where he's about to fall to. And he gets shot with some more ash arrows, and she's falling to the ground from like 100 feet up, and she stops herself with a wall of air. But Rysand hits the ground full speed, and he gets dragged away. She kind of goes into a mate frenzy and loses her shit. She goes and she finds some of the arrows, and she tracks him all the way to a fork in the road and decides this is the way that they would take him, because that's what I would do. And, or something like that. And she finds him, she kills all of the people in there, and she gets him out and gets him someplace safe. She takes all of the arrows out of his wings, and, she takes all the arrows out of his wings, but he's been poisoned, so he's really weak, and his body can't fight it off without the antidote. So, she can't keep him conscious long enough to find out if he even knows what he was poisoned with. So she goes out, she catches the Suriel again, and the Suriel tells her what she needs to save his life, and that they're mates. She gives him what he needs to survive. She gives him the antidote, and she's pissed. She asks him all these questions, and he answers all of her questions, and then she's like, winnow me back right now. And so he winnows them back to Illyria. They land in the mud right outside his mom's old house in the training camp. And, she just leaves him there lying in the mud, and, goes up to Moore and says, take me somewhere else, anywhere else. So Moore takes her to a cabin up in the mountains, and she's like, tell Rise I'll come down when I'm ready. And, but as her mate, he's got to make sure she's okay, so he looks everywhere until, there are only so many places that she could be, but he's still weak, so he can't quite winnow, so he flies around all of the Night Court, everywhere that she could be, and the last place he checks is the cabin, and she's there. They meet up, and he's like, please, can you just let me explain? And she's like, fine. So, she starts making him some soup in chapter 55. Love chapter 55. Anyway, she starts making him some soup, and he sits down at the table, and he is telling her the story of everything. And why he didn't tell her. She eventually understands and forgives him. Well, she had already decided to forgive him, but did want to hear the whole story and want to hear everything. So she didn't say anything. But she forgave him, and she hands him the soup, which is like when you make something for your mate, when you make food for your mate, that's like you accepting the mating bond, making food for them and giving it to them. So she made him the soup, and she gives him the soup. And he eats it, and she watches him eat it, and then, they have lots of sex in, like, every part of the cabin. And then they go back down to Illyria, and Rise beats the shit out of Cassian because, Rise needs to burn off some of the, like, possessive energy from the mating bond, and so that he doesn't, like, beat everyone up who comes near them. So Cassian's trying to goad him, and Rise is keeping his cool for quite a while. I'm actually kind of impressed. Until, Cassian is like, oh, if Feyre's still able to stand, I guess you didn't give it to her well enough. Maybe she'll allow me a ride. And then that's when Rise and Cassian start beating the shit out of each other to try and help him burn off some of that excess energy. Then they go... Is this the one where they have the... Where they have the High Lords meeting? Oh, no. They come up with a mission to go and, like, deactivate the cauldron. They fail spectacularly. The Archeron sisters, Elaine and Nesta, well, the other two, Elaine and Nesta get turned into High Fae because, Ianthe, the bitch from Tamlin's court, sold out Feyre's sisters to Hybern. Tamlin had made a deal with Hybern, and in exchange for Feyre, he will help them. So, all Hybern had to do was get Feyre, and they get Tamlin's help. Feyre makes a vow to Tamlin that if he tries to take her away from her mate and her new family, then she will destroy everything he has ever loved and destroy his court. He doesn't believe her because he thinks she's brainwashed and thinks that she doesn't have a mind of her own and can't make her own decisions, and that doesn't understand why anyone would ever want to leave his misogynistic ass behind. Also useless. He's just kind of useless. Like, he does nothing to help anyone but himself, ever. Anyway, so he doesn't understand that, so in order to get her family out, she pretends that she, like, breaks free of Rysand's mind control that he's had her under. Only she wasn't actually being mind controlled, she was just, in love with him. And she actually broke the wards on the King of Hybern's castle. So now her family can get out, and she pretends to go back with Tamlin. She goes back with Tamlin and starts to destroy his court from the inside out. Court of Wings and Ruin. Tamlin destroys... Feyre destroys Tamlin's court. Lucian and Feyre run away to the Night Court together, because Lucian wants to get to his mate, Elaine, um, who he found out is his mate when she was turned into a high fae at the end of the last book. I personally think they would be really cute, but I also think her and Elaine and Azrael would be really cute, so I'm like trying not to ship either of them, even though I kind of ship both couples, until I find out who she's actually going to be with. Anyway, so they run away to... They're together, they run into his brothers who are trying to capture both of them, and, like, it's a bad situation, and they're about to get caught. Feyre's being dragged across a giant ice pond by her hair, and then Azrael and Cassian come in like badass superheroes, and it's Cassian, right? Azrael goes and helps Lucian, and Cassian's just like, put her the fuck down right now before I cut your head off. So there's that, and then God, I do not make any of these books sound good, but I love them all. I'm just really bad at explaining things coherently. Alright, they get back to the court, and everyone's super happy because their High Lady is back, and Rysand is super happy because his mate is back, and they go and bone for a while. They have the meeting with the High Lords, where Tamlin's a douchebag. They have a bunch of little battles. They've got the big battle at the end. The King of Hybern dies. There's more sex. And, yeah. It's a bad description, but those are all the memorable parts to me. Court of Frost and Starlight. A lot of sex. Christmas time. I mean, what's not to like? Nesta's a total bitch in this, but she is dealing with some really traumatic shit, so, I kind of look past it, even though she's being really mean to everyone. I forgive her by the end of A Court of Silver Flames, even though I was mad while reading this. Yeah, this is just a really cute book with, Rysand and Feyre being super cute, and, like, Elaine and Azrael having, like, a really cute little friendship, and, like, the whole inner circle just being really cute as friends. Like, it's just a really sweet, like, book, and I love it. Not much happens, just kind of a lot of sex, and Feyre gets an art studio. Rhys builds Feyre, well, he buys a plot of land, and Feyre designs the house, and they have it built. Their dream house together. And that's pretty much what happens in this book, and it's just cute and heartwarming and sweet. And then A Court of Silver Flames. Oh my god. This is the dirtiest one yet, and it's amazing. Fucking love all the sex scenes. They are so great. Anyway, so this book is about Cassian and Nesta. They're super cute together. They're fighting all the time because she's still super traumatized. And at the end of A Court of Frost and Starlight, Feyre, and the end of that and the beginning of this, Feyre was like, we're not going to let you keep destroying yourself, spending all of our money, and just drinking yourself stupid and fucking anything that moves. So, you're going to be training with Cassian from now on. And she's like, no, I'm not. And they're like, fine, then your other option is to be dumped back into the human world, which isn't an option since she's high fae, and the humans would reject her and hunt her and try to kill her. So her only option is to train with Cassian. Although it does take him a little bit. He starts trying to train her in Illyria, in the training camp, but it takes him a little bit to figure out that the reason she doesn't actually get into training and like, spar with him and learn the moves, and start learning the moves, is because she doesn't want to make a fool out of herself in front of all of these misogynistic warriors who already think women aren't good for anything other than, like, taking care of the house and cooking for them and taking care of their fragile egos. So Cassian eventually figures that out, and he's like, alright, so we're just gonna train here at the House of Wind, the castle on the mountain. Hey there, kitty, are you about to claw me up? Trying to get into my lap? Come here. So he starts... He starts training her at the House of Wind, and they become friends, and then the sexual tension grows to be too much, and they start sleeping together. But it's just sex because she can't handle anything more right now, and he knows that they're mates, but hasn't said anything, because, I mean, like with Feyre, Nesta's dealing with enough right now. Hello, Matthew. Really, Navina, can you not? All the animals. Anyway, she's dealing with way too much right now, and he doesn't want to put any more on her. And he doesn't also want her to straight up just reject the bond, because he springs it on her when she's not in a place where she's ready to deal with it, or accept it. So they're just sleeping together for now, but they're still becoming friends, and it's sweet and kind of cute. And she makes friends with Gwen. Gwen is the girl from the library under the House of Wind, and Emery is the female Illyrian from the training camp, right? I think that's which one is which. I don't know. So she makes friends with them, and they're all... And they've got a really cute friendship, and they all start training together with Cassian, and then Nesta also gets a bunch of the other librarians to start training with Asriel as well. He starts training all of them, while Cassian focuses on training Gwen, Emery, and Nesta. And then, after that, they do all the trainings. Nesta, Emery, and Gwen, the next thing I remember, once they, finish their training, and Cassian brought in, because him and Rise are still trying to make it so that female Illyrians can earn a place in the Illyrian army. But it's not going well, so he brings the leader of the camp, who's in charge of the army, there or in charge of, that group of the army, to see the girls complete the qualifier to compete in what's called the Blood Rite, which is what the Illyrian men compete in at the end of their training. It's basically, you get from point A to point B. First ones to finish are, the best of the best. And then the next ones to finish, and then so on and so forth. And it's brutal, out in the elements with nothing but what you're wearing. It's, really rough, and a lot of people die from not just exposure, but it's a great chance to kill someone you don't like and get away with it. And he sees that they completed that, and he thinks it's an embarrassment, so he's gonna try and get them killed by abducting them to, like, he abducts them and puts them in the Blood Right, even though they had decided they didn't want to compete in the Blood Right. And nobody can get them out, not even Rysand, who is High Lord of the Night Court, not even Feyre, who's High Lady of the Night Court, because that would be breaking their laws, and, like, the laws that have been set up from forever ago. And also, the punishment for getting them out is death. The person who escapes the Blood Right dies, and the person who is the reason they escaped dies as well. Or the person who got them out dies as well. So they have to just leave them in there. Cassian is understandably freaking out. Oh, right. Before that, he had told Nesta that they were mates, and she kind of freaked the fuck out about it and pulled a Feyre and asked Moore to take her away somewhere, and Moore took her to Emery's house in Illyria and left her there. And then she also went back and grabbed Gwen from the library, and Gwen is still not quite comfortable leaving the House of Wind, but she does because her friend needs her. And she finally, for the first time in, like, years, leaves the House of Wind to go help Nesta and cheer her up and everything. And then she gets abducted. Like, talk about adding trauma on top of trauma. Anyway, so that's where they all are when they get abducted to compete in the Blood Right. They're all at Emery's house in Illyria. And then they're all in their nightgowns, they get abducted, they're in the Blood Right now, and they wake up early. I don't know why they wake up early, but they wake up early. Earlier than everyone else. They also find out that someone's trying to kill, everyone wants them dead, because females competing in the Blood Right or succeeding in the Blood Right, making them look bad? No. So everyone wants them dead, but someone smuggled weapons into the Blood Right, and weapons are illegal in the Blood Right. They get their hands on a few, though, and they kill their way across the fields across the forest, and they're like, we're just trying to make it out alive. And then at some point they decide, you know what? Let's prove them all wrong. Let's win this thing. And so now they're in a race to win it against all the guys there. And they're like, you know what? Let's just win this. Let's be the best of the best. Hold on. Hello? No? Cool. Hello? We might need some more food. I don't know how many frozen meals there are, and I eat the rest of the pasta for breakfast. Alright. Maybe.